They are the ones who always felt a beat behind everyone else, too thoughtful, too reserved, too deliberate in a world obsessed with speed and spectacle. From their earliest memories, they existed on a different timetable. While others craved the spotlight, they were content to watch from the shadows. While peers rushed into careers and commitments, they held back, and it wasn't timidity. It was a profound and unshakable need for authenticity. This is the personality that Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, recognized as being fundamentally different. He saw that some individuals are not built for early triumph or swift adaptation. Instead, they are destined for a slow, powerful blossoming in the second half of life. These are the late bloomers, the ones who often feel profoundly out of step with the frantic rhythm of modern life. As children, they absorb the world's complexity with an intensity that baffles their parents and teachers. They feel the weight of emotions and perceive dynamics that others seem to miss entirely. This makes them seem old and wise beyond their years, yet paradoxically, they can appear immature and lost in the practical world of grades and social hierarchies. Society is a machine that rewards early output. It celebrates the loudest voice, the quickest thinker, the most adaptable individual. But Jung issued a powerful counter-warning. He suggested that a person who assimilates to the world too easily often does so by abandoning their true self. Those who conform too early often surrender too much. The individual we are discussing carries an immense internal weight. Their life is not a straight line of progress, but a deepening spiral, a journey inward before it can ever truly move outward. They stumble in their youth. They wander through careers and relationships that feel like costumes, and to the outside world, they appear to be falling behind. Yet, in that sheltered space of delay, something essential is being forged. It is a self that is not a copy, a mind that cannot be programmed, and a purpose that no amount of societal pressure can accelerate. This video isn't about superficial motivation or quick fixes. It is an exploration of a profound truth. Why the rarest personality type often succeeds later in life, and why that very delay is not a flaw, but the bedrock of their strength. If you have ever felt like you are lagging behind the milestones society sets for you, stay with us. The reason behind that feeling might just explain everything. Jung spoke of this personality type with a certain reverence, a careful approach, as if he were describing a hidden natural wonder. It was not a personality that commands attention in a crowded room, nor one that outshines peers in the early race for career success. It is a personality that prefers to observe, to listen, and to analyze. The cornerstone of Jung's understanding was that human development is not a single universal timeline. Some personalities are naturally built for quick environmental adaptation, but the rare personality is constructed for something else entirely, a process of deep individuation that takes time. This journey of individualization begins right at the start of life. The child feels a profound misalignment with their surroundings. They are not superior or inferior, just fundamentally different. They might be described as an old soul, asking deep questions about existence at an age when others are thinking about toys. They feel emotions that are too large for them to articulate, a depth of experience that isolates them. Here is the fascinating contradiction. While they are internally ancient, their outward life often appears delayed. They stumble through the structures of school, which reward speed and conformity. They are punished for their introspection and overlooked by their peers. Jung believed that this early friction was not random, it was a psychological necessity, a survival mechanism for the soul. 1. The internal world is overwhelming. Most people construct their identity by borrowing from the outside world. They adopt the values of their family, their culture, and their peers without a second thought. This builds early confidence, but often on a very fragile foundation. The rare personality has an inner life of unusual intensity. Thoughts, feelings, intuitions, and symbols all collide within them. Jung would describe this as a psyche where the unconscious is highly active and demanding. This creates a developmental problem. When the internal voice is louder than the external expectations, simple adaptation becomes almost impossible. They can't just become what others want them to be. It's not rebellion, it's a fundamental resistance of the psyche to a false existence. So they hesitate. They delay major life decisions that others make with ease. career choices, relationships, even their core beliefs. From an outside perspective, it looks like confusion or indecision, but inside, it feels like a form of suffocation. Jung cautioned that forcing these individuals into an artificial identity early on could cause lasting psychological damage. The soul rebels against a life that isn't its own. 2. Falling behind is a necessary part of the journey. The contrast becomes painfully stark in their 20s. Friends and colleagues are getting promoted, getting married, and climbing the social ladder. The rare personality appears to be stagnant. They might change jobs constantly, retreat into isolation, or seem listless and unambitious. But Jung would argue that this isn't stagnation, it's a crucial period of incubation. While others are busy building their external resumes, the rare personality is constructing their internal world. They are unconsciously grappling with the big questions that many people don't face until a midlife crisis. Who am I fundamentally? What in me is authentic? And what is a borrowed belief? What is a part of my shadow? And what is a true part of myself? These questions slow a person down, but they are a powerful antidote to a future breakdown. Jung observed that those who succeed early often have a harsh awakening later in life. The rare personality pays their dues early, so they are liberated from a life lived on the surface. 3. The burden of consciousness. Jung believed that a higher level of consciousness inherently brings with it a greater capacity for suffering. The rare personality is often acutely aware of the world's hypocrisy, its manipulation, and its power games. They see through the illusions that others need to function. How can you compete in a game you don't respect? How can you chase a status you find hollow? How can you imitate a life that feels vacuous and unfulfilling? How does one pursue a prize they secretly consider worthless? So they withdraw. Not necessarily physically, but psychologically. This withdrawal is often misinterpreted as a weakness. However, for Jung, it was a form of self-preservation. The psyche will sabotage external success if that success threatens its internal integrity. That's why the rare personality sometimes self-destructs when they achieve something too early. Their soul simply refuses to cooperate with a lie. 4. Loneliness as a developmental crucible. Loneliness is not just a side effect for this personality type. It's a near certainty. Their internal depth makes shallow connections feel meaningless, and deep connections are rare. They can feel alien even in a crowded room, invisible in their own family, and unreachable in their closest relationships. This loneliness often peaks in the late 20s or early 30s, and it represents a crucial test. Many rare personalities break here. They start to numb their feelings, conform to expectations, and abandon the self that is trying to emerge. Jung warned that this betrayal of the emerging self creates a powerful shadow of resentment and self-hatred. However, those who endure the loneliness without succumbing to it undergo a significant transformation. Their ego begins to dissolve. They stop defining themselves by external validation. They stop chasing someone else's timeline. They start to turn inward and listen. This is the beginning of the transformation, though it remains invisible to the rest of the world. 5. The shadow becomes a teacher. Because they fail early and often, the rare personality becomes intimately acquainted with their own shadow, their doubts, envy, anger, and fears. Most people repress these parts of themselves. The rare personality studies them. They question their own motives and wrestle with their own contradictions. This constant internal confrontation is exhausting, but it forges incredible depth. Jung believed that only those who can successfully integrate their shadow can wield real power later in life. Without shadow integration, power leads to tyranny, addiction, or collapse. This is why the rare personality's maturity is slow but unshakable. They have built their character on truth, not on denial. 6. Why society misunderstands them. The modern world doesn't have a category for those who bloom late, so it labels them with dismissive terms: unmotivated, lazy, aimless, wasted potential. But Jung would see the opposite. These individuals are not lost. They are actively resisting a premature, inauthentic crystallization of their identity. They understand, often without words, that choosing the wrong path too soon is a greater failure than waiting for the right one. Their waiting looks like a failure until the very moment it reveals itself as the ultimate success. 7. The first signs of emergence. In their mid-30s or early 40s, a shift begins to happen. It starts internally, a quiet revolution. Clarity begins to dispel the fog of anxiety. Self-assurance starts to replace the need for comparison. Urgency gives way to a deep, abiding patience. They stop asking, "Who should I be?" and begin to simply live as who they are. What happens when you stop becoming and finally start being? And because their self is a genuine, hard-won creation, it possesses immense power. Their voice becomes calm and certain. Their decisions become sharp and precise. Their presence becomes unmistakable. This is the emergence Jung spoke of. The rare personality finally enters the world, not as a player in the game, but as a force that reshapes the game itself. Every delay, every failure, every moment of loneliness and doubt, none of it was wasted. It was all preparation for this moment. For most people, life is built on imitation. They inherit their ambitions, values, and timelines from the culture around them. It works for a while. Society loves a person who adapts, who's quick, and who's obedient. The rare personality, however, can't keep up this charade for long. By their 30s, a fundamental shift has occurred within them. While others are wearing themselves out trying to maintain identities they chose too hastily, the rare personality is experiencing an inner stabilization. It's not the flashy confidence of youth, but a quieter, more powerful alignment. This is the stage where Jung's concept of individuation becomes the driving force. Individuation is not about self-improvement, it's about self-recovery. It is the long and painstaking process of shedding everything that is false. Because they delayed their external commitments, the rare personality sidestepped one of life's biggest psychological traps, building a life on an unexamined ego. Their earlier confusion now transforms into a distinct advantage. They stop searching for answers outside themselves and start consolidating the truths they have found within. This consolidation creates a kind of psychological gravity. The long wait was never a pause, it was a process. People begin to sense their presence even before they understand it. Their words carry weight because they are the result of years of internal testing. They are not trying to impress or dominate. They are simply expressing a truth that has been processed, refined, and tested. Jung believed that a false authority will collapse under pressure, but authority born from individuation is self-sustaining. It doesn't need a title or a following. This is why the late bloomer's rise is often a quiet one. No frantic ambition, no desperate need for approval. The opportunities that eventually appear are different. They are aligned with a person's true competence, their real responsibility, and a sense of meaning, rather than ego or image. This is why these individuals excel in fields that require long-term strategy, leadership, psychology, philosophy, art, and complex systems building. They see the patterns that others miss because they have spent decades observing rather than just competing. They know how things actually work. Another subtle but critical transformation happens during this phase. They stop fearing judgment. It's not arrogance. Judgment simply becomes irrelevant. When your identity is no longer dependent on the external world's approval, a critic can't destabilize you, and a compliment can't intoxicate you. You become psychologically impervious. Jung considered this state rare and, frankly, dangerous to rigid social systems. Such a person cannot be controlled by rewards or fear. This inner freedom is why they often attract projection. Others can sense their autonomy and respond to it unconsciously, some with admiration, some with hostility. The rare personality becomes a mirror, reflecting back people's unexamined selves. At this point, the social dynamics reverse entirely. Earlier in life they were overlooked, now they are watched. Earlier they doubted themselves, now others doubt themselves in their presence. This shift can be disorienting. Many late bloomers are hesitant to step into their new level of visibility because they still carry the memory of early rejection. But Jung warned that refusing to step into one's own rightful place is another form of self-betrayal. Individuation is not about hiding. It is about bearing the weight of who you have become. Their shadow work is now a critical asset. Because they know their own darkness intimately, they are not afraid of power. They don't need to abuse it or prove anything with it. Their ambition is surgical, their movements economical, their energy conserved. While others are burning out in their 30s, the late bloomer is just getting started. Relationships evolve as well. They no longer seek intensity as a form of validation. They seek resonance, fewer connections, but deeper, cleaner, and more stable. They stop trying to be understood by everyone and focus on understanding and being understood by the right few. Jung saw this as a key sign of psychological maturity, the capacity to endure being misunderstood without becoming bitter. And bitterness is the final test. Many people who almost make it fail right here. They look back at their lost years with resentment and measure themselves against a false timeline. This poisons their own emergence. The rare personality succeeds by doing something different. They reinterpret their past. They no longer see their delay as failure. They see it as insulation, protection, and preparation. This reframing is a powerful unlock. They stop dragging the past behind them and instead integrate it. Their story becomes coherent, not dramatic, but internally consistent. This is when their influence begins to expand, not through force, but through example. In a world of chaos, who do you naturally turn to for stability? Others begin to sense a rare stability. They become reference points, anchors in a fragmented world. Jung believed such individuals often become guides without intending to, mentors without seeking the title, and leaders without a formal position. Their presence reorganizes the space around them, and yet they remain free. They are not addicted to outcomes. They don't chase a legacy. They are not afraid of endings because they have already survived the hardest thing of all, becoming themselves in a world that demanded they be someone else. This is why their success, when it comes, does not consume them. It simply expresses them. By the time the rare personality reaches the second half of life, the games that trap most people have lost their power. Status no longer seduces, approval no longer directs, and fear no longer rushes them. This is where Jung's vision becomes almost prophetic. He saw the second half of life as a time for upward expansion, not outward, a time for wisdom and integration. Most people never reach this stage because they spend all their energy defending early, fragile identities. The rare personality arrives here fully prepared. While others panic at the signs of aging, clinging to youth and relevance, the late bloomer experiences something unexpected: relief. They are finally aligned with their own time. Their energy increases because it is no longer divided. There is no performance, no pretense. Their psyche is unified, and a unified psyche is formidable. This is why their peak often comes after 40. It's not louder or flashier, but it is undeniable. They move slowly now, not because they are uncertain, but because speed is no longer a currency they trade in. Every decision is filtered through depth. Every commitment is deliberate. Waste disappears. Jung believed this stage creates a rare form of authority without domination. People listen to them because something about them feels solid. People follow them because something about them feels real. This is also why these individuals reshape environments rather than just adapt to them. They don't rebel loudly, they simply refuse to participate in what is false, and that alone destabilizes weak structures. To an outsider, their success might look effortless, but it is built on decades of internal labor. No one saw the failures that refined their perception, the loneliness that sharpened their discernment, or the delay that protected them from corruption. And unlike early success, this kind of victory doesn't rot from the inside. There is no midlife collapse to escape from. Their life makes sense to them. This inner coherence, the feeling that your life truly belongs to you, is the final reward Jung spoke of. It is not happiness, not wealth, not admiration. It is something far more profound. It's the quiet truth that who you are and what you do are one and the same. Once someone reaches this state, nothing external can truly threaten them. Loss hurts, but doesn't destroy them. Criticism stings, but doesn't derail them. Even death is faced differently, not as an interruption, but as a completion. This is why Jung believed that the rare personality represents a form of psychological evolution itself. A human being who refuses to sacrifice their soul for speed or truth for approval. If you have always felt late, out of sync, or misunderstood, you may not be behind at all. You are simply early for a different kind of life. And if this message resonates with you, if you see your own reflection in this journey, consider joining the community here at Winds of Thought. These videos are not for everyone. They are for those walking the long, rich path of individuation, depth, and mastery over the self. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel to continue on this journey. The rare path can be lonely, but you don't have to walk it without understanding.